Indie games are a dime a dozen, but if you take the time to look around, there's always something there that will catch you by surprise. Hey there friends, it's Codiak here, one half of the team behind Legacy Gaming, and today we're checking out a brand new early access game, the Slormancer, to see if it's worth a look. I won't hold it against you if you haven't heard about this game. Truth be told, I hadn't either, but usually when a review key turns up in our inbox, I tend to watch the trailer associated with it and make a snap judgment about whether or not I actually want to check out the game. I'm not gonna lie, the Slormancer caught my eye. As a huge fan of Enter the Gungeon and more arcadey ARPGs, there's a lot that really enticed me about the game. But I think I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. Let's break this thing down from a 30,000 foot view, as I'm apt to do at the beginning of these types of videos. The Slormancer is a take on the action RPG where you play as one of three classes: the Huntress, the Knight, or the Mage. Things start out incredibly slow as you use the one ability you have to work your way through a graveyard, killing skeletons and creeping towards that next level. As expected, the progression comes fast and furious, but my gosh, was I blown away with how much the developers, a team of just 3 mind you, managed to pack into this one game. I mean, we're talking Diablo-level system development from a team that should, by all standards, not have the resources to pull it off, but they do. You'll spend the next couple of hours leveling up and unlocking your first few abilities, and while you're not beaten over the head with options, there's enough here to keep things interesting. I could tell that each ability was carefully designed to fit a certain playstyle, while also giving players flexibility to approach a class from a different angle. I chose to spend most of my time on the Huntress, which is just my nature. Each class has a handful of abilities, but also a specialization, which acts as the cherry on top of the cake, giving players access to a special ability that really defines the specialized playstyle. Your skills also level up, and the more you use them, the more options you have for modifying them. It's a tiered system that you can invest in however you'd like, using a special currency called Slorm. This was my first real taste of just how much modification and character building the developers managed to pack into the game. As players level up, they'll also gain stat points and invest them in a rather expansive node system. There are a lot more options here than in some other ARPGs, and while it may just seem a bit intimidating at first, the game does a great job of showing you exactly what you're getting for each point. I can really see this system opening up the more you level up because there are some really interesting perks associated with the different stat trees. The character building doesn't stop there either. A system called Ancestral Legacy takes a different approach to expanded traits and passive upgrades, and while it may feel familiar to some other systems in other games, it's rather unique. You'll earn special stones that you can use to unlock a node, and then use Slorm to upgrade that node. It's a slow process, and at this point in early access, we're barely scratching the surface, but fully unleashed, I think this is going to be a centerpiece of the game. Ancestral Legacy nodes add new abilities to your character, give you passive upgrades, and really help you create the champion that you envision. With the character building behind us, it's time to set out on our journey, and here again, the developers punch way above their weight class. Snappy writing and clever dialogue make the story interesting enough that it's easy to latch onto without weighing down the experience. As a lot of indie games tend to do, there's a pretty heavy emphasis on campy humor, but it just works in this pixelized environment. Because this is early access, a lot of the story is still in development, but the gist is pretty simple. Big Bad is back to destroy the world, and the champion, the only one capable of stopping said Big Bad, well, he was poisoned by a protein shake, and that's where you come in. From here, it's just taking the adventure forward one step at a time as you scour dungeon after dungeon, advancing the story towards an inevitable act conclusion where, as expected, there's a boss waiting for you to take on. While predictable, it all works well, and a lot of that has to do with the action, which is incredibly fast-paced and almost hypnotic. The power balance is heavily in your favor, and I think it's safe to say that for the most part, you'll be able to blaze through the game, but that's kind of by design. It's more of a dance of death than an actual slog, and that makes doing the same sorts of things over and over a bit more bearable. At this stage in development, things do feel a bit bland when it comes to enemies. Sure, they have their specific look and function, and it's easy enough to identify them and know what type of attack to look out for. But after the 10th time of running through the graveyard, I was just hoping for a bit more variety. I know it's coming though, and after just a few minutes of digging around the website, it helped confirm my suspicions that more enemies were a big part of the roadmap, and that makes sense. I can tell the developers were more focused on creating great systems first, and if that means players only have 3 enemies to kill instead of 6, well, I'm okay with that. I've said it time and time again, systems make great games. You can have all the enemy variety in the world, but if the systems aren't there that players are engaged and interested in, they just won't care. It's a quality over quantity thing, and as an early access game, the quantity can always come later. Now back to the action. It is superb, and with the amount of control you have over your character's build and playstyle, there's a lot for people to sink their teeth into, even at this stage of early access. For players looking for a bit more than story, well, an expedition system is already implemented into the game, which acts as highly replayable, procedurally generated content. It's the primary way to farm for Slorm and Goldus resources, and a modifier in Cataclysm system will eventually allow players to push the difficulty for increased rewards, but there is also another function within the system. Expeditions act as the primary way of obtaining new Slorm Reapers, the primary weapons in the game. These are pivotal to defining the playstyle of each class, and each has its own unique set of perks and attributes. As you can tell, there are quite a few within the game, and I've barely even scratched the surface. If you're a completionist, your head will be spinning with how much there is to collect. At this time, there are 360 different Slorm Reapers in the game, with more planned, and it's going to take a serious effort to unlock them all. Slorm Reapers also gain experience the more you use them, which will power up their passives and eventually change the look of the weapon. On top of that, you have a more traditional gearing system, and I think this will be good at some point, but I found it to be a bit of a wash in its current state. Gear drops a lot, and I was having a really hard time investing my energy into making sure my character was decked out perfectly. After filling up my inventory with dozens of items multiple times, I just couldn't be bothered to sit there and sift through each and every pixel and try and min-max my character, especially when I was steamrolling content. It doesn't help that your character doesn't change appearance with new items equipped, and while that isn't a big issue, it does kind of keep the player from really connecting with the experience of gearing up. This may all change once additional crafting systems are implemented into the game, which I know are planned, but at this point, very early on in my adventures, I just couldn't get behind this particular aspect of the experience. The Slormancer is definitely on the right path, and with engaging systems that rival that of any AAA title, I think with some more development, this is going to be an indie game that gets a lot of attention. The systems are the real star at this point, and there is plenty of depth within each of them that will allow the game to expand over time. Unlike other early access games that tend to implement major systems over time, the Slormancer team laid that foundation early, instead opting to focus on expanding the story, enemies, and overall volume of content as they push later towards an official release. I'll be honest with you guys, the pieces are all here to have a great game, and based on what I've played and the potential I see with further development, I'm fairly confident saying that this game is definitely worth a look, and for $15, it's an absolute steal. We didn't even really get to talk about the aesthetic of the game, which is charming and dark at the same time, and the entire experience is accompanied by a brilliant soundtrack that uses different instrumentation than the standard fare, and that really helps elevate the entire experience. With new acts, enemies, Slorm Reapers, and systems coming to the game over the course of early access, I have no doubt this game will continue to gain a cult following, and if development goes well, commercial success. There are still some things to iron out, and with a team of just 3 developers, time is going to be the biggest factor here, but hopefully, with the right motivation and a continued focus on the important aspects of the game, the Slormancer will be enjoying a successful launch in the near future. We hope this video helped you figure out if the Slormancer is worth a look. If you enjoy this series and you want more worth a look videos in your feed, go ahead and hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing to Legacy Gaming. You can also join us on Discord. Our community of over 6,000 members is spread across dozens of great games, so check out that link below and join today. Finally, if you like our content and are a fan of what we stand for here at Legacy Gaming, you can help us out even more by becoming a member. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you're helping evolve the channel and build a better community. So check out that join button below to learn more. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.